What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now isn't just spare change, but a small piece of history that millions of people have overlooked for decades? A coin so ordinary in appearance that most people never give it a second glance, yet one that still sparks curiosity among collectors across the country. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that may seem common, but carries more interest than you might expect. The 1973 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series of 1-cent coins in the United States, featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front. When people hear "no mint mark," it often sounds mysterious, like something rare or unusual. But in this case, it doesn't mean the coin is missing something by mistake. It simply means the coin was minted in Philadelphia, where, at the time, pennies were not given a mint mark at all. So if you find a 1973 penny with no letter under the date, that's exactly how it was meant to be made. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the early 1970s. The United States was going through a time of economic change, with inflation rising and the cost of producing coins becoming a growing concern. Despite these challenges, the Lincoln penny continued to be produced in massive numbers to meet the demand of everyday transactions. In 1973 alone, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 4 billion pennies. That's billions with a B. This means the 1973 no-mint mark penny is not rare in the traditional sense. It was made in huge quantities and widely circulated across the country. But here's where things get interesting. Even though the coin itself is common, certain versions and conditions of the 1973 penny can still attract serious attention from collectors. The key lies in details that most people never notice. Small differences in quality, errors during production, and the condition of the coin all play a major role in determining its value. Let's talk about the coin's design. On the front, you'll see the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of his birth. The words "In God We Trust" appear along the top edge, while "Liberty" is placed to the left of Lincoln's profile. The year, 1973, sits to the right. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's one of the smallest details ever included on a circulating U.S. coin. The metal composition of the 1973 penny is also important. It's made primarily of copper, about 95%, with the remaining 5% made up of zinc. This gives the coin its familiar reddish-brown color when new. Over time, as the coin circulates and ages, that bright copper color can darken into brown tones. Collectors often classify these coins as red, red-brown, or brown, depending on how much original color remains. And believe it or not, that color can significantly affect the value. Now, let's get into the part that really sparks curiosity: errors and varieties. Even though billions of these pennies were produced, the minting process was not perfect. Occasionally, mistakes slipped through, and those mistakes are what collectors look for. One of the most talked about errors in 1973 pennies is the double die variety. This happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling effect on certain parts of the coin, especially the lettering or the date. While not extremely common, these error coins can be worth far more than a standard penny. Another type of error involves off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process. This results in part of the design being cut off, leaving a blank space on one side. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can be highly collectible. There are also cases of die cracks, where small lines appear on the coin due to cracks in the minting die. While minor die cracks are common and usually not very valuable, more dramatic examples can catch the attention of collectors. So, what about value? This is where many people get excited, and sometimes a little confused. A typical 1973 no-mint mark penny in average circulated condition is usually worth only a few cents. That's right, just a bit more than its face value. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, meaning it has never been used in everyday transactions and still retains its original shine, the value can increase. For example, a high-grade 1973 penny with a bright red finish might sell for several dollars, sometimes even reaching into the tens of dollars depending on its quality. And if you're lucky enough to have an error coin, especially a strong double die or a dramatic off-center strike, the value can climb much higher. Some error coins from this year have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction, depending on their uniqueness and condition. Collectors also pay close attention to grading. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers representing better condition. A 1973 penny graded in the high 60s, especially with a full red color, can be surprisingly desirable. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1973 penny is the real deal or something special? First, check the date and look for the absence of a mint mark under it. That confirms it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for any unusual doubling in the letters or numbers, any off-center design, or any cracks and raised lines. Also pay attention to the color and overall condition. A coin that still looks bright and clean, with minimal scratches or wear, is more likely to have higher value. If you suspect you have an error coin or a particularly well-preserved example, it might be worth having it evaluated by a professional. One important tip is to be cautious of cleaning your coin. Many people think that cleaning a coin will make it more valuable, but in reality, it often does the opposite. Cleaning can damage the surface and remove the natural finish, which collectors prefer to see intact. In most cases, it's better to leave the coin exactly as you found it. Here's a fun fact that surprises a lot of people. Even though the 1973 penny is made mostly of copper, its actual metal value today can sometimes be higher than 1 cent. This has led to ongoing discussions about the cost of producing pennies and whether they should continue to be made at all. But for collectors, the value isn't just about the metal. It's about the history, the design, and the possibility of finding something unique. Another interesting detail is how these coins connect generations. The 1973 penny might have passed through countless hands over the years, from grocery stores to vending machines, from parents to children. Each coin carries a silent story of where it's been and who has used it. That sense of connection is part of what makes coin collecting so appealing. So why do collectors still care about a coin that was made in the billions? The answer is simple. It's not just about rarity. It's about the thrill of the hunt. Anyone can come across a 1973 penny. It's still out there, hiding in jars, drawers, and old collections. And that means anyone has a chance to find something special. There's also a sense of nostalgia tied to these coins. They represent a specific time in American history, a snapshot of the early 1970s. For some collectors, it's about building a complete set. For others, it's about finding the best possible example of a common coin. And for many, it's simply about the joy of discovery. As you look through your own coins, remember this. Not every valuable coin looks rare at first glance. Sometimes, the most ordinary pieces hold the most interesting stories. The 1973 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in the world, but it's a perfect example of how even the simplest objects can spark curiosity and excitement. And who knows, the next time you receive change, you might pause for a moment and take a closer look. Because hidden among those everyday coins could be something worth far more than you ever expected. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just spare change, but a hidden piece of American history that collectors quietly hunt for every day? A coin so common at first glance, yet filled with subtle details that could turn an ordinary moment into a surprising discovery. Today, we're talking about the 1979 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin millions of people have seen, but very few have truly looked at. At first glance, the 1979 Lincoln penny doesn't seem special. It's small, copper-colored, and familiar. You've probably held one before without even thinking twice. But this particular coin, especially those minted in Denver with the small D mark, carries a story tied to a specific moment in American history, economic shifts, and the evolution of coin production. The Lincoln penny itself has been part of American currency since 1909, introduced to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1979, the design had already been in circulation for 70 years. On the front, you see Lincoln's portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner. On the back, the classic wheat ears had already been replaced years earlier with the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959. So by 1979, the penny carried a look that many Americans had grown up with. The D Mint mark tells us this coin was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for circulating coins across the United States. In 1979, the Denver Mint struck billions of pennies. That's right, billions, which might make you think these coins are everywhere, and therefore worthless. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even though the total number is massive, not all coins are created equal. Small variations during the minting process, slight differences in condition, and rare production errors can transform an ordinary penny into something collectors actively search for. Let's talk about what makes the 1979 D. Lincoln penny unique. First, the metal composition. In 1979, pennies were still made primarily of copper. Each coin contains about 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives the coin its rich, warm color and slightly heavier feel compared to modern pennies made mostly of zinc. That alone makes older pennies like this one more appealing to collectors who prefer traditional coinage. Now look at the design details. On the front, Lincoln's profile faces right, with the word Liberty to the left and the year 1979 to the right. Just below the date, you'll find the small D mint mark. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with United States of America above and 1 cent below. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln inside the memorial, making it one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. But the real story begins when we look at the imperfections. During high-speed production, the minting process isn't always perfect. Dies wear down, machines slightly misalign, and occasionally small but noticeable errors slip through quality control. For the 1979 D penny, collectors have identified several types of errors that can increase value significantly. One of the most talked about is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a subtle doubling effect. You might notice it in the lettering, especially in words like Liberty or In God We Trust. To the untrained eye, it can be easy to miss, but to a collector, it's a sign of rarity. Another variation is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank isn't properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. The more dramatic the shift, the more valuable the coin can become. There are also die cracks and filled die errors. These happen when the minting die develops small fractures or gets clogged with debris, leaving unusual marks or missing details on the coin. Again, these imperfections are not flaws to collectors. They are unique fingerprints that make each coin stand out. Now, let's talk about value.in circulated condition. A typical 1979 D. Lincoln penny is worth exactly what you'd expect, 1 cent. Maybe a few cents at most. But when you move into higher grades, especially coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition, the value starts to climb. A 1979 D penny graded MS65, which means mint state with minimal imperfections, can sell for several dollars. Move up to MS67 or higher, and prices can reach into the hundreds. That's a huge jump for something that once bought you almost nothing. And then there are error coins. A 1979 D penny with a clear double die or a dramatic off-center strike can sell for anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on the visibility of the error and the overall condition. In rare cases, exceptional examples have sold for even more at auctions, especially when collectors compete for a unique piece. One important thing to understand is that condition matters just as much as rarity. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to perfect mint state. The fewer scratches, marks, or signs of wear, the higher the grade, and the higher the value. So how do you know if your 1979 D penny is real or valuable? Start by examining the mint mark. It should be a small, clear D located just below the date. If it looks uneven, unusually large, or out of place, it could be a sign of damage or even tampering. Next, check the weight. A genuine 1979 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, something might be off. Then, look closely at the details. Use a magnifying glass or a simple coin loop. Check the lettering for doubling. Look at the edges for unusual shapes. Inspect the surface for cracks or missing details. These small observations can reveal whether your coin has an error worth investigating further. It's also important to be cautious. Not every unusual mark is valuable. Sometimes damage from circulation can mimic mint errors. That's why serious collectors often rely on professional grading services to verify authenticity and assign an official grade. Here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 1979 D penny isn't considered one of the rarest coins in American history, it represents a turning point. Just a few years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of pennies from mostly copper to mostly zinc due to rising metal costs. That means coins like the 1979 D are part of the final era of traditional copper pennies. That alone gives them a kind of historical significance. Another interesting detail is how these coins connect generations. For many Americans, the Lincoln Memorial penny was a constant presence throughout childhood. It passed through countless hands, from cash registers to piggy banks. Today, finding one in excellent condition feels like rediscovering a small piece of the past. Collectors love this coin not because it's flashy or extremely rare, but because it offers something deeper. It's accessible, it's familiar, and yet, it still holds the possibility of surprise. Imagine going through a jar of old coins and spotting a 1979 D penny. At first, it seems ordinary, but then you notice something slightly different. A doubled letter, an unusual alignment, a detail that doesn't quite match the others. That moment of curiosity is what drives collectors. It's the idea that value isn't always obvious, and that's what makes coin collecting so fascinating. The 1979 D Lincoln penny reminds us that history doesn't always live in museums or behind glass displays. Sometimes, it's sitting quietly in a drawer, waiting for someone to take a closer look. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Turn it over, study it, ask questions, because hidden within that small piece of metal could be a story, an error, or even a value you never expected. And who knows, the next time you hear the sound of coins in your hand, you might not just be holding change, you might be holding a discovery. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket, a coin so ordinary you almost ignore it. But what if that tiny copper coin could be worth far more than 1 cent? What if a 1985 D Lincoln penny, something millions of people have seen, could actually hold hidden value that collectors quietly search for? Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1985 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that may seem common at first glance, but carries a story, subtle details, and surprising possibilities that most people never notice. The 1985 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, one of the most recognized coins in American history. This series began in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, and by 1985, it had already been in circulation for over 75 years. The D Mint mark on this coin means it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for creating coins for circulation across the United States. In 1985, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies each year. The country relied heavily on small denomination coins for everyday transactions, and the penny was still widely used. That year alone, the Denver Mint struck over 5 billion Lincoln cents. That number alone might make you think this coin is extremely common, and in many ways it is. But as collectors know, even common coins can become valuable under the right conditions. To understand why, we need to look deeper into the history and composition of this coin. By 1985, the U.S. Mint had already made a major change to the penny's metal content. Prior to 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper, but rising copper prices forced the mint to switch to a cheaper composition. From mid-1982 onward, pennies were made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating, so the 1985 D Lincoln penny is not a solid copper coin. It is made of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper plating. This change might seem small, but it had a big impact. Zinc-based pennies are lighter, more prone to damage, and behave differently over time compared to their older copper counterparts. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner. It's a design that has remained largely unchanged for decades. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year 1985. Just below the date, you'll find the small D Mint mark indicating Denver on the back. The coin features the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial. This level of detail on such a small coin is something many people overlook. Now here's where things get interesting. Even though billions of these coins were made, not all of them are equal. Some 1985 pennies have unique characteristics that make them stand out to collectors. One of the most important factors is condition. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth significantly more than face value. A 1985 penny in average circulated condition is usually worth just 1 cent. But in mint state condition, especially with a high grade, the value can increase dramatically. Professional grading services use a scale from 1 to 70 to rate coin condition. A coin graded MS65 or higher is considered to be in excellent condition. At MS67 or MS68, the coin becomes extremely rare. At these levels, even common coins can sell for impressive prices. There have been cases where high-grade 1985 Lincoln pennies have sold for over $100, and in some exceptional cases, even higher. These are coins that have perfect surfaces, strong luster, and no visible flaws. Finding one in circulation is extremely unlikely, but not impossible. Another reason collectors pay attention to this coin is the possibility of mint errors. Errors occur during the production process and can make a coin unique. For the 1985 penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, double strikes, and die cracks. One particularly interesting type of error is the double die. This happens when the design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. While major double die errors are rare for this year, even minor doubling can attract attention from collectors. There are also cases of coins struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a penny being struck on a blank meant for another coin. These errors are extremely rare, but when they do appear, they can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1985 penny? First, look at the condition. A shiny coin with no scratches, dents, or discoloration is more desirable. Check for strong details in Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial. If the coin looks almost new, it might be worth a closer inspection. Next, examine the mint mark and the date. Make sure the D is clear and properly formed. Use a magnifying glass to look for any unusual doubling or irregularities. Weight is another important factor. A standard 1985 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If your coin weighs significantly more or less, it could be an error coin or something unusual. Also, watch out for damage. Sometimes coins are altered after they leave the mint, which can make them look like errors when they are not. Real mint errors usually have a natural appearance and follow specific patterns. One of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting is that value is not always obvious. Two coins that look almost identical can have very different values depending on small details. This is what makes the hobby so exciting. Here's a fun fact. Even though the 1985 penny is made mostly of zinc, the thin copper coating can wear off over time, revealing the dull gray color underneath. This is why older pennies sometimes look different from newer ones. It also means that preserving the coin's surface is very important for maintaining its value. Another surprising detail is that many collectors search through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find high-grade coins or rare errors. This practice, known as coin roll hunting, has become a popular way to discover hidden treasures without spending much money. The 1985 Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in the world, but it represents something bigger. It shows how even the most common objects can hold hidden stories and potential value. It reminds us that history is not just found in museums, but also in the small things we use every day. Collectors love this coin because it's accessible. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start collecting. You can begin with coins you already have, learning to recognize details and appreciate the craftsmanship behind them. There's also a sense of nostalgia. Many people remember using pennies like this in their daily lives, whether it was buying candy, getting change at a store, or saving coins in a jar. Holding a 1985 penny can bring back those memories while also connecting you to a larger history. And then there's the thrill of discovery. The idea that a coin sitting unnoticed for decades could suddenly become valuable is something that captures the imagination. It turns an ordinary object into something special. As you look at your own coins, you might start to wonder how many hidden details you've missed. How many coins have passed through your hands without a second thought? And how many of them could be worth more than you ever expected? The 1985 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of why coin collecting continues to fascinate people around the world. It's not just about money. It's about curiosity, attention to detail, and the excitement of finding something unique. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, the mint mark, and the condition, because that small, ordinary coin might just have a story waiting to be discovered, and possibly a value that surprises you. What if the next penny you find in your pocket, the one you almost ignore, could quietly be worth far more than a single cent? Not because it's ancient or made of gold, but because of something so small, most people never even notice it. Today, we're talking about the 1990 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have handled, spent, and forgotten. Yet it still holds secrets that continue to surprise collectors even now at a first glance. The 1990 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coins for generations. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol that defined U.S. pennies for decades. It's a coin that feels familiar, almost invisible in everyday life. But here's where things get interesting. That missing mint mark, or rather what it represents, is what turns the simple coin into something worth paying attention to. To understand why, we need to go back to 1990. This was a time when pennies were still widely used in daily transactions. Every year, billions of them were produced to keep up with demand. The United States Mint operated multiple facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver, each responsible for producing large numbers of coins. Here's the key detail. Coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally did not carry a mint mark for pennies. That means if you have a 1990 penny with no mint mark, it was most likely produced in Philadelphia. Now you might be thinking, if millions were made, how could it be valuable? That's where the story shifts from ordinary to intriguing. Even though billions of 1990 pennies were produced, not all of them are the same. Small differences in condition, striking quality, and rare minting errors can transform a common coin into something collectors actively search for. The 1990 penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition had been introduced in the early 1980s to reduce production costs. While the coin looks like solid copper, it actually has a lighter core beneath the surface. On the front, you'll see Lincoln's profile facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1990 on the right. If there's no mint mark under the date, that's your Philadelphia issue. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands centered, with United States of America across the top and 1 cent below. Simple, clean, familiar. But collectors aren't just looking at the design. They're looking for the tiny details most people overlook. One of the most talked about aspects of the 1990 no mint mark penny is the possibility of errors. These errors can happen during the minting process and often go unnoticed until much later. For example, there are coins with double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to misalignment during striking. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not perfectly aligned with the edge. And in some rare cases, there are die cracks or unusual surface textures that make a coin stand out. Now here's the important part. Not every 1990 penny without a mint mark is valuable. In fact, most of them are still worth just 1 cent, but condition changes everything. A coin that has been heavily circulated, scratched, or worn down will usually hold little value beyond face value. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, what collectors call uncirculated or mint state, can be worth significantly more. Some high-grade 1990 no mint mark pennies have sold for several dollars, sometimes even reaching into higher ranges when graded and certified by professional coin grading services. And when you combine a high-grade condition with a rare minting error, that's when prices can climb dramatically. There have been cases where error pennies from similar years have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. While the 1990 penny is not among the rarest in history, the possibility of a valuable variation keeps collectors searching. Think about that for a moment. A coin that people casually spend without a second thought could, in rare situations, be worth far more than its face value. So how do you know if you have one worth keeping? First, check the date. Make sure it clearly reads 1990. Next, look under the date. If there's no mint mark, you're holding a Philadelphia coin. Then, examine the condition. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the details sharp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial. The better the condition, the more potential value it may have. After that, look closely for anything unusual. Are there signs of doubling in the letters or numbers? Is the design slightly off-center? Do you see cracks or raised lines that don't belong? If something looks different, it might be worth getting the coin evaluated by a professional. Now let's talk about authenticity. Because valuable coins attract attention, there's always a risk of altered or fake coins. However, with the 1990 no mint mark penny, fakes are less about creating entirely new coins and more about altering existing ones. For example, someone might try to remove a mint mark from a coin that originally had one. But this often leaves visible signs, like scratches or unnatural surfaces under magnification. A genuine no mint mark penny from Philadelphia will look clean and natural, without signs of tampering. If you're unsure, comparing your coin with a verified example or having it inspected by an expert can give you peace of mind. Here's something many people don't realize. The true value of coins like the 1990 penny isn't just about rarity. It's also about the story they carry. Every coin has traveled through countless hands, witnessed everyday transactions, and been part of moments both big and small. Some may have been tucked away in jars for decades, waiting to be rediscovered. And sometimes, those forgotten coins turn out to be the ones collectors are looking for. Another interesting detail is how the 1990 penny reflects a transition period in U.S. coin production. The shift to zinc cores had already changed how coins were made, and over time, these newer pennies began to wear differently compared to older, solid copper ones. That's why finding a 1990 penny in excellent condition is more challenging than you might expect. The copper plating can wear down, exposing the zinc underneath, which can dull the coin's appearance. Collectors love coins that have survived this process with minimal wear. There's also a psychological element to collecting coins like this. It's the idea that something so small, so ordinary, could hold hidden value. It turns everyday pocket change into a kind of treasure hunt. People start checking their coins more carefully. They slow down, pay attention, and begin to notice details they once ignored. And that's where the real fascination begins. The 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin ever produced, but it represents something much bigger. It shows how value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Collectors today continue to search for high-grade examples, rare errors, and unique variations from this year. Coin shows, online marketplaces, and private collections all play a role in keeping the interest alive. And every time someone finds a clean, sharp 1990 penny in their change, there's a moment of excitement, a moment of possibility. Could this be the one? That question alone is what keeps the search going. So the next time you come across a penny, especially one from 1990, don't rush to spend it. Take a second look. Turn it over. Notice the details. Because sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. And who knows, the next one you find might not just be spare change. It might be the beginning of a discovery you never expected. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just a penny at all? What if a simple 1991 Lincoln cent, the kind most people ignore every day, could quietly hold a story, and in some cases, a surprising value that collectors are actively searching for? Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1991 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. The small, copper-colored, and familiar. But behind that everyday appearance is a piece of American history, a coin tied to decades of tradition, and one that, under the right conditions, can be worth far more than 1 cent. The 1991 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1991, this design had already been in circulation for over 80 years, making it one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The version without a mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not include a mint mark on pennies until more modern times. That means when you see a 1991 penny without any letter under the date, you're looking at a coin made in Philadelphia. And here's something important to understand right away: this is not an error. Many people assume that no mint mark automatically means rare or valuable, but in this case, it simply indicates where the coin was made at. In 1991, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies, The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 5 billion of these coins. That's a massive number, which is why most 1991 pennies are still only worth their face value today. But as with many things in coin collecting, the story doesn't end there. Let's talk about what makes this coin unique. The 1991 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition had been in use since 1982, when the mint switched from mostly copper to a more affordable metal mixture due to rising copper prices. So while the coin looks like solid copper, it actually has a zinc cord on the front, or obverse. You'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right. Above his head is the word liberty, and to the right of him is the year, 1991. The phrase "In God We Trust" curves along the top edge. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's one of the most detailed small designs ever placed on a circulating coin. So if billions were made, why would anyone care about a 1991 penny? The answer lies in condition, errors, and the subtle details that most people never notice. First, condition is everything. Most 1991 pennies have been heavily circulated. They've been handled, scratched, worn down, and exposed to the elements. But a small number of these coins were preserved in near-perfect condition. These are known as uncirculated coins, and they can command much higher prices among collectors. For example, a 1991 no-mint mark penny in average condition might still be worth just 1 cent. But if you find one in mint state condition, meaning it shows no signs of wear and retains its original shine, it could be worth several dollars. In higher grades, especially those certified by professional grading services, some examples have sold for $20, $50, or even more. Now let's talk about something even more exciting: errors. Mint errors are what truly capture the attention of collectors. These are coins that were struck incorrectly during the manufacturing process. And even though the 1991 penny was mass-produced, a small number of error coins slipped through. One type of error to look for is a double die. This happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling effect on the letters or numbers. On a 1991 penny, this doubling might appear in the date, the word liberty, or "In God We Trust." Another possibility is an off-center strike, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. These coins can look unusual and are often highly collectible. There are also die cracks, clipped planchets, and other minor variations that can increase value depending on how dramatic they are. In rare cases, error versions of the 1991 no-mint mark penny have sold for hundreds of dollars. The exact value depends on the type of error, its visibility, and the overall condition of the coin. So how can you tell if your 1991 penny is something special? Start by examining the coin closely under good lighting. Look for any unusual features: doubling in the text, strange shapes, missing parts of the design, or anything that doesn't look quite right. A magnifying glass or a basic coin loop can help you see details that are invisible to the naked eye. Next, check the condition. Does the coin still have its original shine, known as luster? Are the details sharp and well-defined? Or does it look worn and dull? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. It's also important to be aware of common misconceptions. Some people believe that cleaning a coin will increase its value. In reality, cleaning almost always reduces a coin's worth. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state, even if they show signs of age. When it comes to authenticity, 1991 pennies are rarely counterfeited because their base value is low. However, altered coins do exist. For example, someone might try to modify a coin to make it appear like an error. That's why it's important to compare your coin with known examples and, if necessary, consult a professional. Now here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. The Lincoln Memorial design used on the 1991 penny was actually replaced just a few years later. In 2009, the U.S. Mint introduced a new series of Lincoln pennies to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. These featured different designs representing stages of his life. Then in 2010, the reverse design changed again to the Union Shield, which is still used today. That means the 1991 penny is part of a design era that has officially ended. For collectors, this adds a layer of historical significance. It's a reminder of a time when the Lincoln Memorial was a daily presence in American pocket change. Another interesting fact is that even though these coins were made in huge numbers, fewer and fewer high-quality examples exist today. Over time, coins get lost, damaged, or worn down. This gradual disappearance is what makes well-preserved coins more valuable as the years go by. Collectors today are not just looking for rare coins. They're also looking for the best versions of common coins. A perfect or near-perfect 1991 penny can stand out simply because so many others have been heavily used. And there's something else that keeps people searching. Hope. The idea that something small and overlooked could turn out to be valuable is incredibly powerful. It's why people check their change, go through old jars of coins, and revisit collections that have been sitting untouched for years. The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny represents that possibility. It may not be rare in the traditional sense, but within those billions of coins are a few that are truly special. And finding one of them can feel like uncovering a hidden treasure. Collectors love this coin not just for its potential value, but for what it represents. It's accessible, familiar, and part of everyday life. You don't need to visit a museum or attend an auction to find one. Could already be in your home. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it so quickly. Take a moment to look at the date. Check for a mint mark. Examine the details. Because even a coin as common as a 1991 Lincoln penny can hold surprises. And sometimes, the most ordinary things turn out to be the most interesting of all. Imagine pulling a simple penny out of your pocket, a coin so ordinary you almost ignore it, only to discover it could be worth thousands of dollars. That's exactly the kind of mystery surrounding the 1992 D Lincoln penny, a coin that looks completely normal at first glance but hides one of the most fascinating secrets in modern coin collecting. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint at its Denver facility, which is why you'll see a small D mint mark just below the date. Like millions of other pennies made that year, it features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coinage since 1909. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of history, unity, and national pride. At first glance, there's nothing unusual about this coin. In fact, over 4.4 billion pennies were minted in Denver in 1992 alone. That number is so large that most people would assume these coins are practically worthless. And for the most part, they are. But hidden within those billions is a tiny variation so rare, so subtle, that only a handful of people have ever found it. And that small detail is what turns this ordinary penny into something extraordinary. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to the early 1990s. During this time, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with slight changes in the design of coins, especially the spacing of letters on the reverse side. These changes were part of normal production updates, something most people would never notice. But in 1992, something unexpected happened. A small number of pennies were struck using a design intended for a future year. This design featured what collectors now call a close AM variation. On a standard 1992 penny, the letters A and M in the word America are spaced slightly apart. But on this rare version, those letters are much closer together, almost touching. It's a tiny detail, something you could easily miss unless you're looking very carefully. Now here's where things get interesting. The close AM design wasn't supposed to appear on 1992 pennies at all. It was meant for coins produced in later years. But somehow, a small number of these dies were used early, creating one of the most famous modern coin errors in U.S. history. The 1992 D close AM penny is incredibly rare. In fact, only a few confirmed examples are known to exist. That's right, out of billions of coins, only a handful have this specific feature. And because of that, collectors are willing to pay astonishing amounts of money to own 1.1 verified 1992 D close AM pennies sold at auction for over $20,000. Another example, in exceptional condition, reached even higher values. These are not ancient coins or gold pieces. These are simple copper-plated zinc pennies that most people would walk past without a second thought. So what makes this coin so valuable? It all comes down to rarity, demand, and the thrill of discovery. Coin collectors are always searching for something unique, something that tells a story. And the 1992 D close AM penny represents a perfect combination of mystery and scarcity. It's a modern coin with a hidden secret, one that could still be sitting in circulation today. But how can you tell if you have one? The key is to look closely at the reverse side of the coin. Focus on the word America. On a normal penny, the A and M will have a noticeable gap between them. On the rare version, those letters will appear almost fused together, with very little space separating them. You'll also want to check the initials FG near the base of the Lincoln Memorial, which stand for the designer Frank Gasparo. On genuine close AM coins, these initials are positioned slightly farther from the building compared to standard versions. It's another subtle clue that can help confirm what you're looking at. Of course, because of the high value of this coin, there are fakes and altered coins out there. Some people try to modify regular pennies to make the letters appear closer together. That's why serious collectors always recommend having a suspected rare coin authenticated by a professional grading service. It's the only way to be absolutely certain of what you have. What makes this story even more fascinating is how these coins were discovered in the first place. They weren't found in vaults or hidden treasure chests. They were discovered by ordinary people, searching through rolls of pennies, paying attention to the smallest details. It's a reminder that incredible value can be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it. There are also other interesting details about the 1992 penny that add to its appeal. Like most pennies of its time, it's made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs, replacing the older solid copper coins. Despite its low intrinsic value, the coin carries a rich history and a connection to one of America's most iconic figures. And then there's the psychological side of collecting. People love the idea that something so small and overlooked could be worth a fortune. It taps into a universal sense of curiosity and possibility. Every time someone checks their change, there's a tiny spark of hope that they might find something rare. Collectors today are especially drawn to coins like the 1992 D-Close AM because they represent modern rarity. Unlike ancient coins, which are often locked away in museums or private collections, these pennies could still be out there. That sense of accessibility makes the hunt even more exciting. Some collectors spend years searching for one. They go through thousands of coins, examining each one carefully, knowing that the odds are incredibly low but not impossible. And that's what keeps the passion alive. There's also a broader lesson here about attention to detail. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth thousands can come down to a tiny spacing between two letters. It's a powerful reminder that small details can make a big difference, not just in coins, but in many aspects of life. As time goes on, the number of confirmed 1992 D-Close AM pennies isn't expected to increase significantly. Most of them have likely already been found, and the chances of discovering a new one become smaller each year. But that doesn't stop people from looking. If anything, it makes the search even more thrilling. So the next time you come across a handful of pennies, take a moment to look a little closer. Check the date. Look at the mint mark. Study the spacing of the letters. Because hidden among those ordinary coins could be something truly extraordinary. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It turns everyday objects into pieces of history, each with its own story to tell. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is more than just currency. It's a reminder that even the smallest things can hold incredible value, if you know where to look. And who knows? The next rare discovery might already be sitting in your pocket, waiting for you to notice it. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just loose change, but a small piece of history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people overlook it. They spend it, drop it, or ignore it completely. But today, we're uncovering the truth about a coin many Americans have handled without ever realizing its hidden story. The 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, this coin looks completely ordinary. It's the classic Lincoln cent design that millions of people see every day. But the phrase "no mint mark" often sparks curiosity, confusion, and sometimes even excitement among collectors. So what exactly does it mean, and could it make your penny valuable? The 1995 Lincoln penny was produced during a time when the United States Mint was operating at full speed, creating billions of coins each year to keep up with demand. This particular coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been in use since 1909. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. Now here's where things get interesting. Many people believe that if a coin has no mint mark, it must be rare. But in reality, for the 1995 penny, having no mint mark simply means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. During that time, coins struck in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark, unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco. So right away, we need to clear up a common myth. A 1995 Lincoln penny without a mint mark is not automatically rare just because the mark is missing. In fact, billions of these coins were made. Yes, billions. That means most examples you find in circulation today are only worth their face value. But here's the twist. While the standard version of this coin is common, certain variations and errors from 1995 have captured the attention of collectors and can be worth significantly more. One of the most famous varieties from this year is the 1995 double die obverse. This is a minting error where the design on the front of the coin appears slightly doubled, especially in the lettering. If you look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust, you might notice a clear doubling effect. It's not damage and it's not wear. It's a real minting error that occurred during production. Coins with this double die feature are much more desirable. While a normal 1995 penny might be worth 1 cent, a genuine double die example can sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $50 depending on its condition. In higher grades, especially coins that have been carefully preserved, the value can climb even higher. Let's talk about the coin's physical characteristics. The 1995 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has that familiar copper-colored appearance, although over time, many of these pennies develop darker tones or spots due to wear and oxidation. The design itself is simple but iconic. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces to the right, with the year 1995 displayed clearly. Above his head are the words, In God We Trust, and to the left is Liberty. If there is no mint mark under the date, it means the coin was struck in Philadelphia. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny representation of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial, a detail many people never notice. Now let's dive into value because that's what most people are curious about. A typical 1995 no mint mark penny in circulated condition is worth exactly 1 cent. But condition plays a huge role in coin collecting. Coins that are uncirculated, meaning they have never been used in everyday transactions, can be worth more. A bright, shiny 1995 penny with no scratches, no discoloration, and strong detail could sell for a few cents to a couple of dollars, especially if graded by a professional service. However, the real excitement comes from error coins. As mentioned earlier, the 1995 double die obverse is the standout variety. Some of these coins have sold for around $20 to $50 in average uncirculated condition. In higher grades, such as mint state 65 or above, prices can reach over $100 or more depending on demand and appeal. So how do you know if you have one of these valuable coins? First, you need to examine the front of the coin carefully. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Focus on the lettering. If you see clear doubling, not just a shadow or blur, but distinct separation in the letters, you might have something special. Be cautious, though. Not all doubling is valuable. Machine doubling, which is caused by slight movement during the minting process, can create a similar effect but is much less valuable. True double die coins show strong, consistent doubling that is part of the design itself. Another thing to watch out for is damage. Scratches, dents, or environmental wear can sometimes look like errors, but they do not increase the coin's value. In fact, they usually lower it. When it comes to authenticity, the good news is that 1995 pennies are not commonly counterfeited due to their relatively low value compared to rare coins. However, altered coins do exist. Some people may try to modify coins to create the appearance of doubling or other errors. That's why it's always a good idea to compare your coin with verified examples or have it evaluated by a professional if you believe it might be valuable. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though billions of 1995 pennies were made, very few people ever take the time to actually look at them closely. That means valuable error coins can still be hiding in plain sight, sitting in jars, drawers, or even your wallet right now. Another interesting detail is that coin collecting often starts with simple curiosity. Many collectors began their journey by examining everyday coins just like this one. The 1995 penny might not seem special at first, but it can be the gateway into a fascinating world of history, design, and hidden value. Collectors today appreciate the 1995 Lincoln penny not just for its potential value, but for what it represents. It's a piece of modern American history, a coin that circulated through millions of hands during a time of rapid technological change and economic growth. There's also something satisfying about finding value where others see none. The idea that a single penny, often ignored or discarded, could hold a secret worth discovering. That's what keeps collectors searching. And the truth is, most people will never check their coins closely enough to notice these details. They'll spend them without a second thought. But those who take the time to look, to learn, and to understand what they're holding, they're the ones who uncover the hidden gems. So the next time you come across a 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the lettering. Examine the condition. Because while most of these coins are common, a small number carry unique features that set them apart. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. It turns everyday objects into mysteries waiting to be solved. It transforms loose change into potential treasure. You never know. The next coin you pick up could tell a story you didn't expect, or hold a value you never imagined. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and unknowingly holding a coin that could be worth far more than 1 cent. It sounds unlikely, almost impossible. But for some collectors, that exact moment has already happened. And today, we're diving into one specific coin that might just be hiding in plain sight, the 2002 Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 2002 Lincoln penny looks like any other coin you've seen 1,000 times before. It's small, copper-colored, and features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why you'll see a small D mint mark just below the date. Millions of these pennies were produced, and most of them are still circulating today. But here's the twist. Not all 2002 pennies are created equal. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back a bit. The Lincoln penny design has been around since 1909, introduced to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 2002, the design had already become one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile, originally designed by Victor David Brenner. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. The year 2002 itself wasn't particularly special in terms of major design changes. There were no commemorative redesigns or major announcements tied to the penny that year. But sometimes, it's not the official story that makes a coin valuable. It's the small details, the unnoticed variations, and the rare mistakes that create excitement among collectors. Let's talk about what makes the 2002 penny unique. Like other modern pennies, it is made mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition started in 1982 as a cost-saving measure. So while it looks like a solid copper coin, it's actually much lighter and cheaper to produce. Now here's where things get interesting. Some 2002 pennies have been found with unusual characteristics. Small minting errors that can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors actively search for. These errors can include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, or die cracks, which appear as raised lines across the coin. There are also cases of weak strikes, where parts of the design look faded or incomplete. One of the most talked about varieties is the 2002 penny with strong doubling on certain features. Doubling happens when the coin die shifts slightly during the minting process, creating a shadow-like effect on letters or numbers. While not extremely common, these double die varieties can catch the attention of serious collectors. Another detail that collectors watch closely is the condition of the coin. In the coin world, condition is everything. A worn, scratched penny might still only be worth 1 cent, but a 2002 penny in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, can be worth significantly more. Coins that have never been circulated with sharp details and original luster are the ones that stand out. So, is the 2002 Lincoln penny rare? The honest answer is, most of them are not. The Denver Mint produced billions of pennies that year. But rarity doesn't always come from low production numbers. It can come from scarcity in high-grade condition or from unusual errors that slipped through quality control. There have been instances where collectors have sold high-grade 2002D pennies for surprising amounts. For example, a coin graded at the very top of the scale, something like MS-67 or higher, can sell for dozens, sometimes even hundreds of dollars, depending on demand. That's a huge jump from 1-cent error coins, especially those with clear and dramatic features. Can also command premium prices, but of course, not every 2002D penny you find will be valuable. That's why it's important to know how to identify a potentially valuable one. Start by looking closely at the mint mark. It should be a clear, small D below the year 2002. Next, examine the overall condition. Is the coin shiny? Are the details sharp? Or does it look worn and dull? Then, check for anything unusual. Look at the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. Do you see any doubling? Check the edges of Lincoln's profile. Are there any strange lines or distortions? Flip the coin over and inspect the Lincoln Memorial. Look for cracks, missing details, or misalignment. If you think you've found something special, the next step is verification. Many collectors use magnifying tools or even send their coins to professional grading services. These services authenticate the coin, evaluate its condition, and assign it a grade. A higher grade can dramatically increase the coin's value. Now, here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though pennies are often overlooked and sometimes even considered useless, they are one of the most collected coins in the United States. People of all ages search through jars, piggy banks, and rolls of coins hoping to find something rare. And coins like the 2002D penny keep that excitement alive. Another interesting detail is how modern coins like this one are starting to gain attention. For a long time, collectors focused mostly on older coins, those from the early 1900s or before. But now, newer coins with unique errors or exceptional condition are becoming more desirable. It's a reminder that valuable coins aren't always ancient. Sometimes, they're just waiting to be discovered in everyday change. Collectors also love the 2002D penny because it represents a moment in time. It's part of the final years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which would eventually be replaced in 2009 with new designs celebrating Lincoln's life. That gives this coin a subtle historical significance, even if it wasn't obvious at the time it was made. There's also something deeply satisfying about finding value where others see none. That's part of what drives the passion for coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery, the idea that something small and ordinary could hold hidden potential. And let's not forget the role of curiosity. Coins like the 2002D penny invite questions. Why do some look different? How do errors happen? What makes one coin worth more than another? These questions turn a simple hobby into a fascinating journey of learning and exploration. If you're thinking about starting your own search, you don't need expensive equipment or expert knowledge. All you need is a bit of patience and a willingness to look closely. Check your spare change. Look through old coin jars. Pay attention to the details most people ignore. Because here's the truth, valuable coins don't always announce themselves. They don't shine brighter or feel heavier. They blend in, waiting for someone curious enough to notice them. And that brings us back to the 2002D Lincoln penny. A coin that, on the surface, seems completely ordinary. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies the possibility of something more. A small error, a perfect condition, a hidden detail. Any of these can turn a 1-cent coin into something worth keeping, studying, and maybe even selling. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. You might just find yourself holding a small piece of history, or perhaps something far more valuable than you ever expected. And who knows, the next rare coin story might begin right in your own pocket. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a single penny, and discovering that it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's old, not because it's shiny, but because of a tiny letter stamped on it, a small D that most people never even notice. Today, we're uncovering the surprising story behind the 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary but carries hidden details that collectors quietly search for every day. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is part of one of the most familiar coin series in American history. At first glance, it doesn't stand out. It shows Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front, just like billions of other pennies. But the small D mint mark under the date tells you something important. This coin was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for creating circulating coins in the United States to BY 2006. The Lincoln penny had already been in production for nearly a century. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Over time, the design stayed mostly consistent, with Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, which had been introduced in 1959. So when the 2006 penny was minted, it was part of a long tradition, a continuation of a design that Americans had carried in their pockets for generations. But what makes the 2006 D penny interesting is not just its history. It's the small details, the subtle variations, and the rare imperfections that can turn a simple coin into something collectors are willing to pay serious money for. Let's start with the basics. The 2006 D penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs, replacing the older, heavier copper pennies. Because of this, the coin is lighter than earlier versions and has a slightly different feel when you hold it. The front of the coin features Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word Liberty to the left, the date 2006 to the right, and just below that date, the small but important D mint mark. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words 1 cent and United States of America clearly visible at first glance. Nothing seems unusual, but this is where things get interesting. Even though millions of these coins were produced, not all of them are exactly the same. During the minting process, small errors can occur. These errors are what collectors pay close attention to, because they can turn an ordinary penny into a valuable collectible point. One of the most talked about errors in the 2006 D penny is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect. It can often be seen in the lettering or the date, and while it might be subtle, it can significantly increase the coin's value. Another possible error is a die crack, which appears as a thin raised line on the coin's surface. This happens when the die used to strike the coin develops a crack over time. While this might sound like damage, in the world of coin collecting, it's actually something that can make a coin more desirable. There are also off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, leaving part of the coin blank. These are rarer and often more valuable depending on how dramatic the misalignment is. But here's the key point. Not every 2006 D penny with an unusual feature is valuable. Condition plays a huge role. A coin that looks worn, scratched, or damaged will almost always be worth less than one that is in near-perfect condition. Collectors use a grading system to determine a coin's condition. Coins that are uncirculated, meaning they have never been used in everyday transactions, are the most desirable. These coins often retain their original shine, known as luster, and have sharp, clear details. Now let's talk about value, because this is where curiosity really builds. Most 2006 D pennies are worth exactly what you'd expect, 1 cent. They were produced in huge numbers, and many are still in circulation today. But certain examples have sold for much more. For instance, a 2006 D penny in perfect, uncirculated condition can sell for several dollars, sometimes even reaching $10 or more depending on its grade. That might not sound like a fortune, but for a 1 cent coin, it's already a significant increase. Now add an error into the mix, especially a noticeable one like a double die or an off-center strike, and the value can jump even higher. Some error coins from this year have sold for $50, $100, or even more, depending on how rare and visible the error is. There have also been cases where collectors paid premium prices for coins that were graded at the highest levels, such as MS-67 or above. These are coins that look almost flawless under magnification, and they are incredibly difficult to find. So how can you tell if you have one of these valuable coins? First, look for the mint mark. Make sure there is a small D under the date. That confirms it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look at the letters, the numbers, and Lincoln's face. Do you see any doubling? Any unusual lines or marks that don't look like scratches? You can also check if the coin is off-center or if the design looks misaligned. These are signs that something unusual happened during the minting process. Another important step is to check the condition. If your coin still has a bright, clean appearance with sharp details, it could be worth more than one that looks dull or worn. If you believe you have something special, the next step is to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether your coin is authentic, identify any errors, and assign it a grade that helps determine its market value. Now here's something many people don't realize. The 2006 penny might not seem rare today, but over time, coins like this can become harder to find in high-quality condition. Most coins get used, scratched, and eventually worn down. That means uncirculated examples become more valuable as years go by. There are also collectors who focus specifically on modern coins. While some people only chase older, historical pieces, others are interested in finding hidden gems among more recent coins. For them, the 2006 penny is part of a larger hunt, a search for overlooked treasures that others might ignore. And here's a fun detail. The Lincoln Memorial design on the back of the penny, which appears on the 2006 version, was actually replaced just a few years later in 2009. That year marked the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and the U.S. Mint introduced a new series of reverse designs. So in a way, the 2006 penny represents the final years of a design that had been in use for decades. This adds a subtle layer of historical significance. It's not just another penny. It's part of the closing chapter of a long-running design that millions of Americans grew up seeing every day. Collectors also love the challenge. Finding a valuable 2006 penny isn't easy. It requires patience, attention to detail, and sometimes a bit of luck. But that's exactly what makes it exciting. The idea that something valuable could be hiding in plain sight, mixed in with everyday change, is what keeps people searching. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities. Every time you receive a handful of coins, there's a small chance that one of them could be special. And that brings us back to where we started. That simple penny in your pocket. The one you might overlook without a second thought. It could be just another coin, or it could be something more. The 2006 Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how even modern coins can carry hidden stories. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious, and that sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. So the next time you come across a penny, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that tiny D. Examine the details carefully, because you never know. That ordinary coin might just be the one that turns curiosity into discovery. And once you start looking, you may never see your spare change the same way again. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and holding something that most people would ignore. Yet in rare cases, that tiny coin could be worth far more than 1 cent. What if one of those overlooked coins is the 2018 Lincoln penny? At first glance, the 2018 Mint Mark Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and features a familiar face most Americans have seen thousands of times. But behind that everyday appearance lies a story of modern minting, subtle details, and surprising collector interest that many people still don't fully understand. The 2018 Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint, which is represented by the small D mint mark you'll find on the front of the coin. This coin is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, one of the most iconic and widely collected coin series in United States history. The Lincoln penny itself first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, and it has continued ever since, evolving in design and composition over the decades. By 2018, the penny had already gone through many changes. One of the biggest changes happened back in 1982, when the U.S. Mint switched from mostly copper coins to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. So the 2018 penny is not made of solid copper like older coins. Instead, it is primarily zinc with just a thin outer layer of copper to give it that classic look. This makes it lighter than older pennies, weighing about 2.5 grams. On the front of the coin, you'll see the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right, the year 2018. Just below the date, you'll notice the small D mint mark, showing it was produced in Denver. On the back, the design introduced in 2010 is still used. It features a Union shield, symbolizing Lincoln's role in preserving the United States during the Civil War. Across the top, you'll see United States of America, and across the shield, the motto E pluribus unum. Now here's where things get interesting. While millions of 2018 D pennies were produced, not all of them are equal. Most are worth exactly 1 cent, but certain variations, especially those with errors or in perfect condition, can be worth significantly more. Collectors are especially interested in coins that have what are known as mint errors. These errors happen during the production process at the mint. Even though the U.S. Mint uses advanced technology, it still produces billions of coins each year, and small mistakes can slip through. For the 2018 D penny, some collectors have reported double die errors. This is when the design appears slightly duplicated, often visible in the lettering or numbers. It may look like a shadow or doubling effect, and while subtle, it can greatly increase the coin's value if confirmed. Another type of error is a die crack or die chip. These happen when the metal die used to strike coins develops small cracks or chips. When that damaged die is used, it leaves raised lines or bumps on the coin. Some collectors find these fascinating because they represent a unique moment in the coin's production. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not perfectly aligned. In some cases, part of the design may be missing, which instantly makes the coin stand out. The more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin can become. But even without errors, condition plays a huge role. A 2018 D penny that has never been circulated, meaning it has no wear at all, can be graded by professional grading services. These services assign a grade based on the coin's condition, with higher grades being more valuable. Coins graded at the very top levels, such as MS 67 or MS 68, are extremely difficult to find. These coins have nearly perfect surfaces, sharp details, and strong luster. A 2018 D penny in such high grades can sell for far more than its face value, sometimes reaching tens or even hundreds of dollars depending on demand. There have been auction listings and online sales where high-grade 2018 D pennies have attracted serious attention. While you won't typically see them selling for thousands, the excitement comes from the possibility. A coin that most people ignore could, under the right conditions, turn into a collectible item worth much more than expected. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2018 D penny? First, check the mint mark. Look closely under the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small D, that means it was minted in Denver. That's the starting point. Next, examine the coin carefully under good lighting. Look for anything unusual. Check the lettering, especially Liberty, and the date, 2018. If you notice doubling, odd spacing, or anything that looks off, it could be worth a closer look. Then, inspect the overall condition. Does the coin still shine? Are the details sharp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lines of the shield on the back? Coins that look almost brand new are far more desirable to collectors. Using a magnifying glass or a simple coin loop can help you spot details that aren't visible to the naked eye. Even small differences can make a big impact in the world of coin collecting. It's also important to be aware of fakes or altered coins. While the 2018 D penny is not one of the most heavily counterfeited coins, there are people who try to modify coins to make them appear like rare errors. For example, someone might try to create artificial doubling or damage a coin to mimic a mint error. To avoid this, always compare your coin with verified examples from trusted sources. If you believe you have something special, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether your coin is genuine and assign it an official grade. Now here's something many people don't realize. Modern coins like the 2018 D penny are often overlooked by casual collectors. People tend to focus on older coins, thinking age automatically equals value. But in reality, rarity and condition matter far more than age alone. Because so many 2018 pennies are still in circulation, finding one in perfect condition is actually quite challenging. Most coins quickly get scratched, worn, or damaged as they pass through hands, machines, and pockets. That means truly pristine examples become harder to find over time. Another interesting detail is how quickly collectors move when a new error is discovered. If a unique 2018 D penny variation is identified and confirmed, it can suddenly create demand in the market. collectors begin searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to find the same feature. This activity is known as coin roll hunting, and it has become a popular hobby. People go to banks, get rolls of pennies, and carefully search through them, looking for rare dates, errors, or high-quality coins. The 2018 D penny is often part of these searches because it's still relatively recent and widely available. There's also a psychological side to collecting coins like this. It's the idea that something ordinary could be extraordinary, that a coin you receive as change could have hidden value. It turns everyday transactions into a kind of treasure hunt. Collectors love the 2018 D penny not just because of its potential value, but because it represents modern coinage. It shows how even in today's world of digital payments and credit cards, physical coins still have a story to tell. And for new collectors, it's an accessible starting point. You don't need a large budget to begin. You can simply start by checking the coins you already have. Over time, as you learn more, you begin to notice details others miss. There's also something deeply satisfying about holding a coin and knowing its journey. From the moment it was struck at the Denver Mint, to the countless hands it may have passed through, to the possibility that it ends up in a collection where it's finally appreciated. And here's a surprising fact. Some collectors specifically focus only on modern pennies, building complete sets by year and mint mark. For them, the 2018 D penny is an essential piece of that puzzle. As time goes on, fewer high-quality examples will remain. Coins get lost, damaged, or removed from circulation. That slow process naturally increases interest in well-preserved pieces. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it so quickly. Take a second look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the details, because hidden among millions of ordinary coins, there could be one that stands out. The 2018 D Lincoln penny may not seem extraordinary at first, but it carries the potential to surprise those who pay attention. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious, and sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest curiosity. And now the real question is, how many 2018 D pennies have passed through your hands without you ever noticing?